the Vedder River Campground bank erosion, and we have Ms. Barker on the line this morning just to give you a quick presentation and verbal update on some of the challenges that we've been experiencing over there, and we thought that the board should be familiar with. So Stacy's just going to share her screen.
Now, are you able to see my screen?
We are, Stacy.
Excellent. I'm going to keep my video off. I'm having some problems with bandwidth with all of my children with their teachers on right now at the same time. So I want to make sure that my mouth is equal to my speech as well. So I'll just leave that off while I go through this. But thank you. For those of you who are not familiar with the Vedder River Campground, I'll just give you a brief overview. So the campground sits just over 3 kilometers downstream of the Vedder Crossing Bridge in Sardis. So it's on the south bank of the Vedder River, just on the outskirts of the Yarrow area of Chilliwack. If you're interested in kind of a simplified version of the origins of the Vedder River, the Chilliwack River exits the north end of Chilliwack Lake. It flows through the Chilliwack River Valley until it reaches the Vedder Crossing Bridge in Sardis, where its name then changes to the Vedder River. So it continues to flow west. It goes past the campground, and then it reaches the Vedder Canal and, of course, eventually the Fraser River. So the campground sits within the City of Chilliwack's Vedder Greenway. I've just highlighted the campground here with the red arrow. The Greenway is a linear corridor extending from the Vedder Crossing Bridge all the way down to the Highway 1 bridge over the Vedder Canal. So the Greenway consists of land and water between the 2 setback dikes. The City of Chilliwack has a license from the province to manage this area, and it's full of various outdoor amenities. So a key feature of the Greenway is a long loop trail referred to as the Vedder Rotary Trail. It's a very busy trail. The north side alone looks like it sees between 200 and 400,000 users per year. If you haven't yet been there, I'd highly recommend it. So it took 24 years to complete the 20.8 kilometer trail, which runs on both sides of the river, including through the Vedder River Campground. So this picture was taken just this past November. The City of Chilliwack held a grand opening to celebrate this accomplishment. And this picture is actually taken within the group site that we're going to speak about in terms of erosion. So the Vedder River is one of the most heavily used recreational fishing rivers in BC, so we attract a lot of fishermen at the campground. Also, the trail itself has really helped increase local interest in the campground. It's inevitable, whenever I'm there, somebody will come off the trail, find me and say, I just didn't realize this was here. How great to have this in the community. How do I book a campsite? So the trail really has opened up exposure and walk by advertising for the campground. It's worked out very well. So the campground itself has about 180 individual campsites. They range from full hookup for RVs and also just simple tent sites along the river. So we attract a lot of locals, but we also have visitors from across North America. So here's an aerial view of the campground. The photo is a bit aged, sorry about that. It's some of the sandbars and vegetation within the river has shifted, but it gives a good representation of the full site. It's at the end of Giesbrook Road. It's a 15-hectare property and it's on Crown land. It's within the City of Chilliwack and it has about 800 meters of waterfront. So I've just put a red line on here just to identify the setback dike. So the campground is located in an active floodway between the riverbank and this setback dike. The FRD acquired a Crown land license of occupation over the site and took over ownership from the Caldas Lake Parks Board in 2017. So the campground is flanked on both sides by large group camping sites that can accommodate groups from 50 to 100 people. It's very popular with weddings, family reunions, Boy Scout groups, etc. The one on the left of your screen, actually, I've come to understand it's one of the larger group sites in the Lower Mainland, so it's quite popular for booking. People are constantly calling about it. So now I just want to bring your attention back to erosion. I'll just draw your eye to the eastern group site highlighted in yellow, and this is where the erosion that we will talk about has been of most concern. So this is a picture of this group site before the city of Chilliwack's trail looped through this area. It's a very nice site. So this is a picture of the same site, just looking at it from the opposite direction, but with the Vetter Rotary Trail on the right. The split rail fence delineated the group site from the trail users. Now, although you don't see it within this picture, there's actually a lovely bench just right off to the right, looking out at the river, which I'm going to speak to in my next photo. So here's the bench, and this picture was taken on May 14th. This was the first day that we started to see erosion of the bank within this group site. It was, of course, during spring freshet. The river was running high and very strong in this area, but the river may have slightly shifted, and it certainly was hitting this portion of the bank with more force than we'd seen previously. And this part of the bank started to fail, and we started to see some erosion of the trail. Here you can see that the bench was quickly removed by the city of Chilliwack, and the trail was rerouted. It's important to point out that there was nobody staying in the group site at this time, nor is there anyone staying there now due to COVID-19 restrictions. So in that way, it was convenient in terms of no one being here for safety concerns. So as the city of Chilliwack manages the greenway, it's responsible for safety and maintenance along the trail. And it's the city who have led and financed the erosion control works in this area. So this photo was taken 2 days on May 16th, 2 days after the last photo. And you can see the progress of the erosion. The trail is now fully split, and there's a turbulent eddy it's developed in this little pocket that the river's made. And it's really making a mess of things there. So this photo was taken 4 days after the last photo on May 20th. Certainly we can see more chunks coming off the bank. By this time, the city of Chilliwack had moved quite quickly with erosion control plans. They authorized Nova Pacific Environmental to proceed with the environmental assessment and regulatory permitting work that's required to do this type of repair. They also hired Kerwood Lytle as a design engineers for the required works. So 5 days later, May 25th is this picture. The bank continued to erode. A large cottonwood tree on the upend stream dislodged into the river. This was very concerning because it was offering some protection. But this erosion continued at about the same rate for the next 5 days, as the river levels did not drop significantly. But where we ran into a problem was on Saturday, May 30th. There was kind of this monster rain event in the valley, and this erosion greatly accelerated. So you can see the May 30th rain event here on this precipitation graph. This graph somewhat mirrors the timeline of the erosion issue itself. Needless to say that this event caused a problem, a big problem. This is a graph outlining the Vetter River, Chilliwack River water levels kind of close to this area. And the high spike here at the end is correlating with this rainfall event. This is kind of a graph of the freshet, really. Typically, we see high water events in the fall on the Vetter, but the levels we saw this spring, is my understanding, they weren't particularly high, as I understand it, but certainly this volume and the river itself just chose this path and really impacted this particular location. So this picture was taken on May 31st. So just overnight, the erosion along the cut bank had greatly accelerated. The river was just driving straight into this area. It was really churning the dirt up on the sides. It was quite dirty in this area. The remnant vegetation along the bank had all been eroded away. So we were expecting continued high water levels, at least for the next couple of days. And we were worried that this level of erosion would continue. And it was threatening more of the city's trail network and certainly campground infrastructure, potentially campground operations and guests as well. So the city of Chilliwack quickly proceeded with the bank repair. Now you can see in this picture the gravel area a few meters away from the river, just to the right, kind of the lower portion. So keep that in mind when you look at the next picture. You can see June 1st, the next day, that the river eroded the bank all the way to that gravel. So we had lost several more meters just overnight. So the erosion was greatly accelerating. It was very sad, actually, to watch this for staff as well. It just happened very quickly. This is kind of a poor resolution picture, but it was taken from the north side of the river at Lickman Road, looking across the river. It's not the greatest quality, but you can see the erosion and the exposed roots really in this area. So by June 2nd, the cut bank was getting very close to the hydro pole, the potable water source, and the picnic shelter on the right. So we moved the shelter. BC Hydro came and they shut off the power to this area. The potable water that was at the shelter was capped off as well. The area of greatest impact from this erosion was approximately about 50 meters in length, and we lost about 20 meters of land in from the original bank. There was additional areas of erosion downstream along the trail, but this was certainly the most significant portion of it. This is the opposing view. You can see large trees were coming down, further destabilizing the bank. This particular tree has fallen down into the river and is not budging. It's still there, and it's causing some safety concerns. So on June 3rd, emergency works started. The works involved placement of riprap above and below the high water mark within the eroded area. And I don't know if this is a good representation from this picture, but the rocks that these gravel trucks were bringing were humongous. When the operator, the very talented operator, I should say, was dropping them into the river's quite deep here. Sometimes they would drop a large rock in the river and you couldn't even see it anymore. So he really had to build it up. So the crew made quick work of the preliminary repairs to stop the erosion progression by placing this riprap or large rocks just along the bank to armor it. It was a relief to really see that the land wasn't eroding anymore past this. So by June 4th, protection works had progressed quite rapidly, as you can see in this picture. So this photo was taken on June 5th. So emergency erosion control works are expected to be completed either later today or tomorrow, and then repairs to the trail and the campground can begin. So I just wanted to point out the tree in this photo highlighted with the red arrow here, taken and compare it to a photo taken before erosion. So you can just get a sense of how much land was lost here. So this was after the erosion, and this was before. That's the same tree. It certainly is a significant amount of land that was lost here. I just want to express my appreciation to all the City of Chilliwack staff who were very great to work with in this emergency, particularly Joe Kosker. He's the Deputy Director of Operations with the city. Now, this is certainly not exact, but the area that was lost is represented by the yellow hash marks. Due to its proximity to the water, The existing hydro pole had to be removed. The picnic shelter will have to be relocated, and as well as the potable water service will have to be rerouted. It can still function as a group site in the near future, and thankfully the river levels appear to be going down now. So I realize this is an unfortunate setback, but the future of both the trail and the campground still looks very good. Plantings are going to reestablish a riparian buffer along the bank, and there's still room for the trail and the group site to coexist in this area. This trail certainly opens up possibilities for the campground. We've had very informal discussions between staff about possibly partnering on a new shared washroom, or maybe just taking advantage of the traffic along the trail and having a quick detour for ice cream. So there's lots of potential here. Now this is a slide that is just hot off the press. They just gave it to me about 15 minutes ago here. And you really can see the riprap work that was put in here. This is a slide that the City of Chilliwack's Parks Design crew is suggesting for rerouting the trail to have a little look outside as well, a little node there, so we can have some benches to enjoy the site. And also there's ample room to continue the group site as well. But it really does give you a good view of the erosion repair work. So I just wanted to give you a quick update of COVID-19 impacts to the campground. So we've definitely had significant setback due to COVID-19. The campground had to be closed for 2 months. Typically we open at the beginning of April. It was closed in April and May. We opened our doors to self-contained units on June 1st. The phone is ringing off the hook. I guess with nowhere else to go, people certainly want to camp locally. So it's not a concern that people aren't wanting to come and camp. What we are working through right now is WorkSafe BC and Health Authority guidelines. We need and are improving upon a WorkSafe BC COVID-19 safety plan. We're trying to continue opening more and more sections of the campground for use. Hopefully by the end of this month, we'll have 50% capacity reached. We're looking at maybe reutilizing the group site, the large group site on the other side, not the one that had been eroded here, but to maybe accommodate some more self-contained units to assist with lost revenue. We can also consider extending our camping season this year to November, maybe to capture some more fishermen in the fall. And if we need to, we can even consider winter storage of some trailers to supplement some lost revenue. So we're looking at all options, trying to get over this difficult season. So I'm certainly looking forward to coming back to the committee in the future with some more favorable, under more favorable circumstances. Hopefully COVID-19 will pass. And we want to discuss the potential of this campground, certainly its infrastructure, some design challenges that we've had with it, and some changes that we would like to suggest. Certainly to enhance the visitor experience, and that could potentially drive more revenue at the sites. So thank you for letting me provide this update.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Any questions?
I have a question. Alexis?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. With respect to costs for the emergency work that was done, is there any way that the province can assist with that?
Ms. Barker?
Yeah, so I believe that the City of Chilliwack has made an application to have those works covered by emergency funds through a provincial emergency number and request. I believe they're still hearing back about that request, but I believe they have a strong case for that, and they've done a very good job with their application.
Okay, I have one more question if I could, and that's with respect to the history of the campground. Has the campground seen this kind of erosion in the past?
When we took over the campground in 2017, there was a lot of research done on that. We were looking at different aerial photographs kind of throughout the various years. And it does seem like the river shifts a lot in this area. There was one bite kind of further downstream, kind of mid campground, that looks like it may have been a similar situation that also had been rip-wrapped in the past. So I think it's not uncommon, but hopefully, certainly with this particular erosion control, that we've done a good job, and it won't happen, at least in this section. But certainly we need to continue working with the City of Chilliwack to see if there's any other areas along this 800-meter section that maybe need further attention.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to give everybody a little perspective, having lived on the river upstream from that for 35, going on 40 years, we've seen a lot of riprap come and go over the years. And it was certainly an unusual time for it to swell to such a degree, the river. Typically, we get the fall rains with an early snow in the mountain, and that's when we have an issue. So this was unusual indeed. The springtime freshet is usually not a major issue for the Chilliwack River. But just to mention that over the years, the river does its own thing and meanders and takes homes out periodically, and anybody who's close to it. So I don't know if I voiced a loud enough caution initially when we did purchase this property, but in my opinion, that's to be expected, and I'm glad to see that the engineers themselves are having a good look at things, and hopefully we'll be able to rip-wrap it appropriately. One final comment is that what I've noticed is that when you do rip-wrap a location, it always has repercussions on other locations. It'll force the water in a new direction the next time there's high water. So even though we try and manage these things, the river has a mind of its own, and it's always a challenge. I have constituents right now that are up against it with huge amounts of erosion, and others who have gained ground, property from the river moving. So always an interesting time, and never a dull moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Engar. Director Facio? There he is.
Ah, there we are. Just like to thank Parker for a very informative report, and it's great when we get this sort of reporting and actually get pictures shown to us how the amount of erosion that's happened there, and also to thank you to the City of Chilliwack for moving the parks for the repairs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Ross?
Sorry, took me a minute to get myself off on mute. Yeah, just a thank you from me as well. I'm actually now a frequent user of those trails. A friend of mine lives in Chilliwack, so we walk there once a week. And I couldn't believe how fast the action was. 1 week saw the massive erosion, and the next week we just went yesterday and saw the quick action. So congratulations on a job well done. And as a frequent user, thank you.
Thank you, Director Ross. And I know Director Popov and I both have lots of experience working with Mr. Kosker and his team. And he's a top-notch director with the City of Chilliwack, Public Works. And I'm glad to hear from Ms. Barker that he worked well to get things going. This highlights, I think, the benefit of the partnership between the City of Chilliwack and the FERD in this particular resource. And I think it's very important, obviously, to the community as a whole and the region as a whole. And certainly from living in Yarrow for 30 years, this kind of erosion is a little bit unusual, as Director Engar mentioned, but the benefit in that area of the river is that it actually widens out quite a bit. And, you know, while we might get some of these smaller nodes that sometimes the river will take a piece of the bank off, the large scale erosion that you'd see in some of the smaller kind of faster moving areas of the river, kind of more up into the Chilliwack River Valley, where it's taking out big mud banks and clay banks. The river has quite a bit of area in by where the Vetter Campground is. So in terms of the future of Vetter, I think it's, I don't believe it's at a significant risk, and I think it'll be a great asset for years to come. And this highlights the importance of having that partnership with the city. Next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is 4.3.1. We have the 2020 Homelessness Survey preliminary information. There is a motion for your consideration. We have staff available on the line to answer any questions, but we do actually also have Mr. Van Wyck on the line if there are any questions for him at this point.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Moved.
Moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Popov. And any questions?
Just a comment, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was really interested to read this report, and to germane to my area in particular, the number of people living outside or in a car or a van or a camper, 91% increase. That's certainly indicative of some of the concerns that my area's had, and adds definite credibility to lobbying the province for more support. And I'm eager to hear Mr. Van Wyck's attendance at the board meeting, and hopefully we have an opportunity to see him in person. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other questions? And I'll get you to just call out your name. I'm getting a pretty good lag here on my internet, so I apologize if I'm missing anyone or if I'm breaking up for any of you.
Alexis?
Go ahead.
Thank you. This report's not coming to our council until July 20th. And so we haven't had an opportunity as a council to look at it, but I have pulled certainly the mission stats and just done a comparative, but it's an absolutely much more in-depth, I think, document that we've received in the past. And certainly our numbers are significantly increased. What I find interesting is that Mission, for some reason, attracts a larger 50 to 60 plus age group in their, in those that are in this position, whereas Abbotsford and Chilliwack have a younger demographic, and I wish I could understand how this works. One thing that struck me was, of course, this is done pre-COVID, so our situation is a little bit different right now in that we are providing services to our homeless population, of course, and so we are seeing greater numbers on the street. However, the study indicates a larger attachment in the mission area anyways to mission doctors, and that attachment has been significant for, say, 6+ years. And so a lot of people say, oh, they're not missionites, but the statistics show otherwise, that they are indeed mission citizens. So it's just a first blush going through the document, and I will be spending more time with it as it will be, of course, discussed at council. But just that's some of my initial takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Okay, I just saw Ms. Stewart raise her hand there. So Allison, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to let you know we have shared a draft of the report with municipal staff. So I think that's what Director Alexis is referring to. We are working to get that draft finalized, double checked, all the numbers checked. So it is a draft that you've seen, and the final report will be released at the board meeting with a full presentation from Dr. Van Wyck and be able to answer the questions. But it is one of the things is that we're trying to get this information out as soon as possible, just particularly because of the COVID situation. We were lucky enough to have the count completed on March 3rd and 4th, which was just before COVID. And so we were able to actually provide some rough numbers to Fraser Health quite early on in April to ensure that certainly for our communities that these higher numbers would have hopefully been reflected in any planning work that they were going to go doing. So, you know, the good news is that we would be able to bring this information to you a lot earlier. I think past years it's been after September when we've brought forward the final reports. But the bad news, you're correct, that the numbers are up across the board about almost 50%. So it'll be really interesting to see the full report and the full implications of the new numbers.
Thank you. Director Rob?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lum. Along the same line as Director Alexis there, we have an alarming number of seniors in this report. The Fraser Health tends to use 55 and over as a senior. In this report, it looks like it's 60 and over. Do you know why there's a difference to staff?
Thank you. Either Ms. Stewart or Dr. Van Wyk.
Whoever would like to comment.
Not everybody at the same time.
Allison, it's Ron Van Wyk here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Allison, do you want me to respond?
Sure.
Yep. Go ahead, Dr. Van Wyk.
Yeah, thank you. What we are using the age categories that are in line with the census age categories. So currently, that's how we have presented them. 40 to 49, 50 to 59, and then 16 plus. But we are able to break it down. So if there is interest to see the number 55 and older, we can certainly provide that. I just have to do some further tabulations, but that is possible. But that's why we currently go to those categories, because it's in line with the census data categories and pass counts as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'll talk to Fraser Health. I think they should be consistent with all the reports. But
very good. Any other questions or comments?
Blue?
Go ahead, Director Blue.
Thank you. I would appreciate having a better breakdown of the numbers, because I think when it comes to the service provision on the street in terms of who we're dealing with and if there's a shift, particularly for the much younger or the much older, I think there's some very particular things that we have to have in place and to consider. And I think that would be helpful if Dr. Van Wyk can provide that for us.
Thank you. And any other comments? Don't see any. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
Next item is 4.4.1. We have an information item addressing COVID-19 in regional and community parks and trails. We do have David Urban on the line if there are any questions about this item.
Thank you. And questions? Don't see any. Next item.
Next is 5.1. We have an Emergency Operations Center update. This is just a verbal update from staff. We have Tarek Islam, our Director of Engineering and Community Services. He's been in our EOC over the past number of weeks and wanted to just give you a bit of an update as to what's been happening in the region.
Thank you. Director Islam.
Good morning. Thank you, through Chair. So our EOC for Freshet was activated on May 27, and we had issued on June 1st about 29 undecked properties for alerts in Area C and Area G. And the park staff from FVID were utilized to hand delivering alerts for the daily river checks and the area that are alerted. And we have 6 staff worked on a physical EOC in our boardroom, where other staff worked remotely. And the mission ESS was offered to assist in evacuations if they were needed. And fortunately, we didn't need to evacuate anyone. Alerts were rescinded on Monday, June 8th. However, if your flood plan is activated at 5 meters for the undiked lands, so EOC is still activated. We are just monitoring it. And until Fraser River levels are remained below 5 meters. So 10-day forecast basically showing that there's a possibility a little bit of slight rise, but I don't think it will happen. And the river levels at 7 this morning was 4.86 at the mission gauge. And the highest was recorded on June 5th, and it was at 5.45 at the mission gauge. So that's basically my update. And our EOC for COVID-19 is activated since March 16th.
Thank you, Director Islam. Any questions? Thank you very much for all your staff working very hard in the EOC. I saw Reg this morning as I was heading up to my office. And he looked like he had a bit of a smile on his face. So when I just look at his face to judge how bad. So he was smiling, so I'm smiling. That's right.
Stobart?
Go ahead, Director Stobart.
Yes, I just want to thank staff again for getting those notices out. We do get every year, there's 1 or 2 new people that have moved into the area and aren't aware of the situation that's been going on for many, many years. And as Trek said, it doesn't look like there's going to be anything too serious if things continue. And I see with the snow indices report that came out yesterday, the Fraser as a whole is at 90% of an average here, which is a little better news than we had a couple months ago. So hopefully we're past the worst of it this year, but it will likely be a longer freshet period, but maybe not quite the high waters that we've experienced the last couple of years. So again, thanks very much to staff for looking at it.
Thank you, Director Stobart. Any other questions or comments from staff or from directors? Don't see any. Thank you again, Director Islam. Next item.
And next is 5.2. We have the North Fraser Harrison Mills Fire Protection Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1545. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio and seconded by Director Stobart. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Next, we're going to move all the way down to item 7, which is reports from staff. I have a couple of announcements to make today. The first is that I am very pleased to report that we have a new Director of Finance who will be starting on June the 15th, so this coming Monday. Kelly Lounsborough is coming to us with about 16 years of experience with TransLink, most recently as Director of Financial Planning and Analysis. Prior to that, she was Taxation Manager for the City of Delta and also some positions in the private sector. So we're really looking forward to welcoming Kelly, albeit in a rather unusual environment, starting a new job in a global pandemic. But I'm sure everyone will make her feel welcome, and I'm sure that each of you will get an opportunity to meet with her either in person or in a Zoom environment real soon. And with that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Christy Hodson, who's been filling in as Acting Director of Finance over these last number of months. It has been a particularly challenging time to take on that kind of role. Not only is it the busiest time of year, as most of you know, anybody who's ever done any kind of accounting in their lifetime understand that those first 4 months of the year are always tricky. Not to mention the current situation that we're in, going through an audit, and we've also had a couple of other recruitments underway in that department. So thank you very much, Christy. We've really appreciated your support, and we're looking forward to seeing how this team is going to grow and develop over the months ahead. Next, I'm just going to share my screen because I wanted to, since we weren't able to have you guys come in today, I wanted to, now let's see if I can figure this out this time. I've got a picture on my screen that's not seeming to show up. Let's see here. doesn't seem to want to share with you. All right, well, it's on my screen. It looks really awesome. I just wanted to tell you guys that today we have quite a lot of activity in our parking lot, and it's not just the fire department that's playing with the ladders, but we also have quite a construction crew. BC Hydro is working really hard at getting some more fast charging stations, as well as our level 2 dual chargers installed. So in that row of parking where the existing charging stations are located, there will soon be 8 new chargers and then 2 fast chargers. So it's really exciting for our electric vehicle strategy that we've had underway for a number of years. And as we see more and more use of these stations, I know that the electric vehicle driving public will really appreciate it. So that's all of the reports from staff. Oh, that's the thumbs up, not a question, Director Ross? Okay. Next is reports by directors, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, directors. Now would be your opportunity. I was just going to say, and if you don't take Ms. Kinnaman's word for it, I can try and hold my computer up to the window and you can actually just see the construction work that's happening outside the window. I don't see any reports from board directors. Oh, Director Facio, go ahead.
Just a sec. He's left me. Just a thank you to our staff for these difficult times, how they've been managing and carrying on the work of the Fraser Valley Regional District, not just with the COVID-19, but with the potential of flooding as well. So kudos to you, staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Facio. Any other reports from boards, directors? Don't see any. Next item.
Next is public question period. So as has been our practice, we advertised in advance of this meeting and enabled the public to submit any questions to info@fvrd.ca. We did not receive any written submissions, questions for items relevant to the agenda. However, anyone who is watching online at this moment can call 604-702-5000 and we can certainly entertain those questions. We will pause here for just a couple of seconds and wait for the broadcast to catch up, and staff will tell me when that has occurred. In the meantime, you can talk amongst yourselves or you can take a look at Chair Lum's screen at the moment. He is shining it down on the parking lot where you can see all of the activity that's underway down there. Ms. Riley tells me that there is the possible opportunity where the 2 existing charging stations, which are closest to the building, at some point in time, we may choose to repurpose those and perhaps install those over at the Mary Street parking lot. We'll just have to see over time what the usage looks like for this new center. But I can tell you anecdotally, there hasn't been a single time in the evening or on the weekends where I haven't come to this parking lot and seen that those stations are in full use. So certainly the community is getting a lot of good use out of these facilities. So staff are telling me we need another 30 seconds. I don't know any good jokes today.
The camera didn't pick up how dirty my desk or office was, did it? I hope not.
No, I didn't draw everyone's attention to your monitor until you had well turned away from your desk.
Okay, good. So the stacks of documents requiring signature.
That's right. All right, Mr. Chair, I think we can safely proceed to the next item, which is item 10, looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Popov. All in favor, opposed if any, item carries.
Okay, and if you just give us about 2 minutes to stop the recording and then we can move into our short closed section.